So Christy Sides, we know she's a terrible coach. And we know that there is like a level of incompetence there. But I'm going to actually make the argument that she doesn't understand, has a fundamental misunderstanding of the sport of basketball. Or at least of what the sport of basketball is right now. Before we get on to, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to hit 22,000 by the end of the day. Right now, we are only 95 subscribers off. I can't believe we're probably going to do it. But that would be absolutely incredible. Be absolutely, absolutely incredible. But I do have to say, Christy Sides, I genuinely think, is worse than we thought. And I'm going to explain why. Because she sees what happens in games, she's watching tape, and she is coming out with the wrong conclusions every time. Like against the Phoenix Mercury. The Phoenix Mercury's coach, Nate Tibbetts, came from the NBA. He's genuinely was just like, they pushed the pace and we couldn't deal with it. Christy Sides said the reason they won was because they slowed the game down. The other team's coach was like, man, we couldn't deal with their speed. And Christy Sides is like, no, we slowed it down. We took great control by slowing the game down. The only reason you were down in the Mercury game was because you slowed the game down early. When you started running, you were unguardable. You were unguardable. The reason why the Mercury were able to, they set that zone to slow you down. You were up 31 points running. They set a zone to slow you down. So you went into this game and you were like, maybe you thought, you know what, I need to take control of this game again. And that's where the problem is that she is not good and stubborn. In life, you can learn on the job, but you cannot be bad and stubborn. You cannot be stubborn in your ways while being bad. Especially when you have Caitlin Clark. You have Caitlin Clark who plays a style of basketball that has not been seen in women's basketball. She plays a style that is unguardable as of right now. Teams are having to resort to playing elementary school zones to try stop them. Teams are resorting to stop her. Teams care more about stopping her than stopping your team. And she's cool with that because she's just going to pass the ball to her teammates that are open. But all you did was take away her best asset, which is passing. And then the worst part about it is that Caitlin Clark, and it's a fundamental misunderstanding from a lot of fans of the sport of basketball too. Fans want Caitlin Clark to shoot the ball 20 times. Not 20 out of rhythm shots like she shot today. She barely shot a good shot today. The one she hit at the start of the fourth quarter was a good shot. The catch and shoot in a bit of rhythm, starting the fourth quarter, cool, that was a good shot. She missed a couple of good shots too, but a lot of her shots were rushed. She attacked the basket really well, I thought, today. Overall, a pretty poor game. She looked like she gave up on Christy Sides. Caitlin Clark looked like she genuinely gave up on Christy Sides. She wanted to go off when Wheeler was coming in. It shouldn't take a coach. It shouldn't take a genius coach to see that her and Wheeler should never be on at the same time. And also that you cannot, and I repeat, cannot base your style of play around Erica Wheeler and Damiris Dantas. They're the only two players that benefit from the style of play. I get it, you signed Damiris Dantas for a reason. But it's not that. It's not that. And the worst part is we've heard Lynn Dunn talking about Christy Sides. And she has talked about how it's not Christy Sides' fault. We need to give her space. It's the fault of the system. We've heard there and I don't necessarily think she meant the running system. I don't know what she meant. But it could be interpreted in a way as the coach of the GM of the Fever saying that actually the reason why they're losing is because of Caitlin Clark, and not the fact that when they started off the year 2 of 9, when they were running Caitlin Clark at the shooting guard position most of the time, they were 1 and 9. They started off the season, I'm pretty sure, 1 and 9 through their first 10 games. What were they I think they might have been 8 and 11 through the 19 games, but through their first 11 games, they were 2 and 9. They were 2 and 9 through that first stretch where they had 11 games in 20 days. 2 and 9. Right now, they are 11 and 14. And there are 2 to 3 games she has lost. But the biggest problem is that she doesn't understand that Caitlin Clark is not a scorer right now. Caitlin Clark is not at her best when she's scoring. She can score. She can score. But if you look at how Caitlin Clark scored in Iowa, it was not from scoring down or from slowing down. It was from going downhill. She shoots best in rhythm off that pullback. When she goes downhill and somebody is having to step up to guard her and she's stepping back on her left or going behind the back, pull back to the right. That is when she's most in rhythm. That is the craziest thing about it, is that is when Caitlin Clark is most in rhythm. And you're doing everything you can to get her out of the shots that she's best at shooting and that she's shooting at the highest percentage this year. So you're doing that. And not only that, you don't realize that Caitlin Clark is incredibly easy to stop the individual. Caitlin Clark, the system is unguardable. And that is where the fundamental misunderstanding comes in. Caitlin Clark, the system, won the game. Caitlin Clark, the player, did not win the game, but Caitlin Clark, the system, won the game. They cannot stop the system. There was no way that they were able to stop them. They could not stop Caitlin. They couldn't. There was nothing they could do. They were genuinely they were stumped. They had nothing. They were talking about their great defense. No, you just played terrible offense. Minnesota Lynx did not play good defense in this game, which is why I think, again, Cheryl Reeve will look at the tape and say they weren't playing good defense. You got lucky in the Lynx missed shots. You got lucky that Kayla McBride was tired out by guarding Caitlin Clark. You got lucky. You got really, really, really lucky in that game. But what she doesn't get is Katie Lou Samuelson running the floor. Look, she makes good decisions a lot of the time. Sometimes she panics and turns the ball over. Most of the time, Katie Lou is going to make good, decent decisions on the ball. She's very good at making the extra pass. And look, she had 8 points today. She hit 2 of the 4 threes. That's what you need. If she's going to give you 40% from 3, that's good. Lexi Hull is one of the toughest defenders in this league because of her length. I do think quickness-wise, she isn't the greatest, so she's not going to be the greatest guard in those quick guards. I wish she'd kept Celeste Taylor for that reason. But Lexi Hull's length can really bother players. It really bothered Kayla McBride today. Nalissa Smith, look, some games is going to be Nalissa Smith's games. Other games is going to be Katie Lou's games. I think she made a really good decision I thought her rotations in general were good. The problem is that she just doesn't understand basketball. She actually doesn't. Pulling Caitlin Clark when she did. Caitlin Clark being told to pass the ball and go away. Being told to pass the ball and go away doesn't make sense. In the fourth quarter, you ran pick and rolls to start the third. Caitlin Clark 3 assists in 4 minutes. You ran pick and rolls through the whole fourth quarter. Your team scores 28 points. For the rest of the game, you ran through Aaliyah Boston or Demiris Dantas in the high post. Or not even the high post. The freaking elbow extended at the 3-point line. What can they do out there? Dantas hit one where she got it and just kind of turned and hit a 3. She can shoot. Yeah, cool. You're running a play. The only player that's going to be good in that position is Demiris Dantas. And that's what Dantas was signed for. Dantas was signed for that system, to play that system and play that role. She can't run. She cannot run. She is useless in the Caitlin Clark system. She's absolutely useless. She was signed to play that role. So you're going to play this system to help Demiris Dantas and Erica Wheeler. Cool. If you're going to do that, sit Caitlin Clark. But what she doesn't get is that, again, she's going to talk in that game about how, look, what you don't realize is, and I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding with a lot of WNBA coaches, it's the reason why Steph Curry is unguardable. It's the reason why I think Steph Curry is without question top 5 player of all time. Steph Curry may not have been the best player on those Golden State teams, but he was the system. You have to double Steph at half court. You have to go and cover Steph anywhere because of his gravity. With Caitlin Clark, you can't because she's so good going downhill to the right, and she's finishing so much better through contact, you cannot let her go downhill. So on that pick and roll, you have to at least soft hedge. And if you blitz that, she's getting better at hitting the player, or it's Katie Lou's coming up, and a lot of times you can get it to Katie Lou, and suddenly Aaliyah Boston's wide open. Teams aren't blitzing those screens anymore. But you have to hedge in a way, because if you don't hedge, she turns the corner and goes to the basket, and she's going to make a good decision, whether it's score or kick to the corner shooter off the help. If you soft hedge, she's really good at splitting the soft hedge with the pass to hit Aaliyah Boston on the short roll, and Aaliyah Boston's decision-making facing the passes is great. When she has her back to the basket, she only hits cutters. She never sees the weak side. When she faces the basket, she has a choice. She can either go to the basket, she can hit the corner, she can hit the wing. And then you've got Kelsey Mitchell, who again is almost always in the corner. They have to leave Kelsey Mitchell open. In the first half, when you ran through Kelsey Mitchell, she was 3 of 11 from the field. 3 of 11 from the field when you ran through her. When you ran through Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell's 5 of 7. Because she gets the ball open. She gets the ball one dribble from the basket. She starts getting the ball on cuts. Aaliyah Boston's great at hitting cutters. That's one of the best parts of her game. Aaliyah Boston is so much better off the short roll now. Her improvement coming off the short roll in her decision making has changed this entire team. It has changed everything. It makes the pick and roll so much more dangerous, and it doesn't allow the blitzes to happen as quickly. Katie Lou on offense, her decision making has been great. She's been a great addition to the starting lineup. And again, Nalissa Smith is even okay in the high-low. Nalissa Smith coming off that in the high-low with Aaliyah Boston is getting better. So whoever they want the floor is getting better. Hopefully Lexi Hull can start hitting shots, but she's just exceptional on defense. You got to keep her in the game for that. But I will say, she is she doesn't get that though. She doesn't get it. She thinks Caitlin Clark scores X points. We need to just run her off some stuff for Caitlin Clark. And it's like, no, you can do that. You can occasionally do it. But you can't go 6 minutes where Caitlin Clark touches the ball. All she does is dribble the ball to the halfway line, pass, and run to the corner. Like, you can't waste 6 minutes of the game where Caitlin Clark's job is to dribble the ball to the halfway line. When Caitlin Clark is going downhill running, even in the half court, when Caitlin Clark is able to go downhill off those pick and rolls, it's so hard to guard. It's so hard to guard because of her ability to make the decisions. Teresa Weatherspoon said it best. The only way to stop Caitlin Clark is to take the ball out of her hands. The only person right now who has had the ability to take the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands since game about 5. Lainey Hamilton did it a couple of times. Dejanay Carrington did it a couple of times. Since the run, is Christy Sides. She doesn't understand why other teams fear Caitlin Clark. Other teams do not fear a spot-up shooter standing in the corner. They fear the best passer in this league, the best pick-and-roll ball handler in this league. They fear the most dynamic offensive player this league has ever seen as far as ability to create team offense. They fear the player who can create the most points ever in the WNBA. A'ja Wilson is the best scorer. Caitlin Clark creates more points. A'ja Wilson, by the way, may be the best defensive player in the league. Don't get it twisted. A'ja Wilson is a better player than Caitlin Clark. I'm not making that comparison. Offensively, there is a debate. She is the best offensive player in the league. And it's not because of her scoring. Yeah, people are like, oh, she's the female Steph. People aren't watching games are like, oh, she needs to be shooting better. She does need to shoot better. But it doesn't, like, at the end of the day, she is still historically great. And that's while she's shooting bad. Once she starts getting into it and she shoots a bit better. And also, in general, I will say it is better when it comes to when it comes to shooting percentages. She's not that much off like a Sabrina Ionescu. WNBA shooting percentages are lower in general, and that's one thing people do have to understand. You're not getting Steph Curry shooting percentages. But at the same time, this team is going to suffer because their coach and their GM have a fundamental misunderstanding of basketball. When your understanding of the sport of basketball is to regurgitate what you know and not adapt when you've got a player that's worth adapting for. Her team have adapted. Her players have adapted. Kelsey Mitchell's adapted. Aaliyah Boston's adapted. Katie Lou Samuelson's adapted. And Alyssa Smith has adapted. Every player on this team, except your favorite Erica Wheeler, has adapted their style of play. And Demiris Dantas, who I don't know why she's playing. I don't know. I don't understand why Dantas is playing. There's actually no reason. Just giving Alyssa Smith those 4 extra minutes at the 5. The only players on this team are Dantas and Erica Wheeler that have not adapted their game to Caitlin Clark. But yet, you are adapting the team's game to them. In the first half, I know, Aaliyah Boston did not get enough post touches in the first half. She was dominating. Absolutely dominating. And you didn't give her enough post touches in the first half. You didn't. You played her on the damn 3-point line, and it was just some weird high-low actions, and they got very lucky with a lot of offensive boards. It was just a calamitous first half that you got lucky in. And that's the problem, is she's going to say, oh, we were worse in the third quarter. Yeah, of course you were. Because you ran the same crappy system, but you missed some shots and the Lynx were better. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of basketball between her and Lynn Dunn. Lynn Dunn does not think Caitlin Clark is a point guard. Newsflash, Caitlin Clark is a garbage shooting guard. She is a garbage shooting guard. The only reason why Caitlin Clark should ever be off the ball is an occasional possession. If she's hot and you want to just get her the ball, and you want to run a couple of possessions where she comes off some pin downs. But you got to run that, like, maybe just to mix things up. You can't spend 6 minutes with her not touching the ball after dribbling it past the halfway line. That is not on. That is incompetence. And I'll say it, the reason why she's so incompetent is because she doesn't know any better. She doesn't know any better. And I will go to my grave saying that she does not know any better. And the problem is that she's stubborn. Lynn Dunn is stubborn. Lynn Dunn thinks that she's a great young coach who's only going to get better. The reality is that she is 47 years old. This is her first time as a head coaching job. She is regurgitating. She wants the team to play like they did last year, despite the fact that with 15 games to go, they're only 2 wins off what they were last year. She is seeing this team winning and actively saying, nah. She sees how the team is playing and winning and is actively saying, nah, stop. She sees the team playing well and genuinely is telling them, stop. And you might be saying, oh, she's not telling all the players that. You can't run the Caitlin Clark system without Caitlin Clark. You can't run a run and gun system with a point guard who dribbles the air out of the ball. You can't do that with Erica Wheeler. You cannot run that. You cannot run that system. And the back down, get the ball into a Leah Boston system is the reason they were 2-9. It was the reason why, even though the stats-wise, Caitlin Clark was putting up more points, she was putting up great counting stats. Caitlin Clark was not that good at the start of the season. Her counting stats were great. It doesn't even matter with the shooting percentage. She had some good games. Her counting stats were great. She was not good. She was not good up to that point. But you're probably looking and saying, oh, the counting stats, she was actually better at the start of the year, even though other than assist, her counting stats are down. No. At the end of the day, your team is winning because the system with her orchestrating is unguardable. Who cares if Aaliyah Boston happens to be the best player on any given day? Who cares if Kelsey Mitchell is the best player on any given day? If Nalissa Smith is? If Katie Lou goes off for 30? Who cares? The system does not work with the ball not in her hands and not allowing her to go downhill, whether it be a pick and rolls or off drag screens on the break or just running and passing. The system does not work when she is standing in the corner and the first option is to Kelsey Mitchell and she goes dribble, step back, brick. It doesn't work. It does not work. And the problem is that Christy Sides does not realize why she's winning games. She doesn't realize why the Fever are winning. She doesn't realize why the Fever all of a sudden are looking like a great team. She doesn't know enough about the sport of basketball. She is obviously watching. She's obviously coaching the WNBA. She's seeing how things were done in the WNBA. And she's like, nah, we're doing things as they are. This worked for this team, so we're going to do it. And not. Caitlin Clark plays a style of basketball that's never been seen. Her teammates are getting easier shots. They're becoming more efficient. This team is winning games. And it's more similar to a Mike D'Antoni NBA style than is anything in the WNBA. Instead of trying to learn about how the team played at Iowa, instead of trying to learn, because again, if you play the Iowa style with better players, you're going to win more games. Like that Iowa team had no right. They had no right to be in the national championship game twice, and they got there. Like they were not. Take out Caitlin Clark, and they probably don't make the tournament. That is a team. That is a team where all their players look better because of the system that Lisa Bluter put in, and you have to have Caitlin Clark for the system. And that is where the issues are all are. Is that instead of seeing what Caitlin Clark did, they knew they had the number 1 pick in like December of last year. She had 4 months to prepare a system around Caitlin Clark. And she came into the season and said, no, Caitlin's fitting into what we do. We're not changing for her. Caitlin's fitting into what we do. And then they start off terribly. And then Caitlin decides to just take over. And then they have one game where they're up 30 and they're slowed down. And instead of realizing that, okay, we need to just keep her, we need to just keep going with her system. Erica Wheeler sit on the bench. We're running the Caitlin Clark system. Our backup point guard is now Grace Berger. We got to just keep playing the system and keep pushing. She decides, I'm in a panic. Why did we lose that 31-point lead? You know what? We didn't lose because of me. Oh, we're going back to my style. We're playing my style of basketball. She does not understand the sport. From a just sporting understand. Like, she's behind. Her team play a revolution it's not a revolutionary style of basketball, but for the WNBA it's revolutionary. And she wants to do everything in her power to make sure they stick to the status quo and suck like the Fever have sucked since Tamika Catchings retired.